Bad news. Right now is a terrible time to learn about fragrance. That means it might be a terrible time to post this video. But in an effort to convince you that you will learn some valuable lessons, I'll give you 3 quick tips right at the top. Lesson number 1 is that never, ever, not ever, should you ever pay full price for fragrances. You go to the store and everything's $150 or more. Do not pay that price. There are gray market dealers like Aura and Venba who will sell you full-sized bottles for like 70% off, no problem. Anyone who's deep into this hobby knows that you go to the store to smell everything for free, then you go home to buy it from discounters. Hot tip number 2, even if money means nothing to you, do not go to the store, spray something on a paper strip, and then decide whether you like it or not in that moment. When you do that, all that you're smelling are the top notes, the most volatile aroma compounds that project immediately, but then dry down 15 minutes later into the heart and base notes. The opening is a nice pregame treat, like licking the cookie dough off of a mixing spoon. The main event, the thing that you're buying, is the dry down. Finally, even if you don't care about any of that and you just plan on reapplying every half hour so it's all top notes all the time, something might smell one way on your paper and then another way on your skin. I do think that most people are really bad at shopping for perfume, since most people just sniff the paper and then decide if they like it in a matter of seconds. Here's my advice. Go to the store, spray 6 to 8 interesting things on the paper strip, decide which 2 you like the most, spray each one into the inside of your elbow, and then go take a lap. Smell each arm an hour later and see which one you like, if any. Check again in 4 hours and see if it's still there or if this is something that you'll need to apply in the morning and then again at lunchtime. Then, when you decide that you like something, say it with me now, go home and buy it at a discounter. I hope I've now gained some goodwill and demonstrated some trustworthiness. So if I may take a moment to explain how I got so knowledgeable about this stuff, it's not a very long story. In September, I met a YouTube buddy named Nick Robinson who had just put out a documentary on Jeremy Fragrance. He said, I wanted to bring something to our rendezvous that you wouldn't be able to experience over an online exchange, and then he pulled out a bottle of Office for Men, which is sold by Jeremy Fragrance. This is all as we lay out on the beach splitting a Japanese curry, by the way. That had to have looked like an insane exchange from any potential onlookers. So I put Office for Men on my wrist, and I thought, this certainly smells like cologne. But then an hour later, after going into the ocean, it was pretty crazy to notice how strong it still was. Nick says, Jeremy puts a lot of focus into longevity and performance. And honestly, that was the first time that I'd considered that a perfumer can decide on stuff like that, as opposed to my assumption that you just mash aroma compounds together and hope for the best. By the end of September, I had bought a couple bottles, learned about different scent profiles, sold most of my bottles, traded a few of them for other ones, and then by the end of October, I had sampled at least 100 and cultivated the ability to anticipate how something might smell, the same way that you might go to a restaurant and go, oh, interesting, yucca pave with manchego crema and epazote powder. I bet that's good. There's obviously no substitute for trying it for yourself, but you learn how to make connections based on what you've tried in the past. I knew I had gotten really good when I took my sister to the mall last time she came into town. I gave her 2 diptyque samples, one Philosikos and one Fleur de Peau. And I said, hey, check out this grandpa combo. Our grandpa had a fig tree in his backyard, and Philosikos is heavy on fig leaves, and he also sold carpet for a living, so the aldehydes in Fleur de Peau are reminiscent of those found in fresh carpet. She started crying, and we had to leave the mall. I've become demonstrably skilled in sharing scents with people. The hobby has, to me, been as fun and rewarding as learning how to detect notes in wine or cigars or any other comestible, but with a much smaller entry barrier. If I want to know what a certain wine tastes like, I have to go buy a bottle at the store or a glass at the bar. But if I want to know what a fragrance smells like, I can pop into Neiman Marcus and try it for free. If it's a really rare one, I could get a 1 milliliter sample for under $10. And if I really wanted to, I could try 10 in a day. You can't do that with booze or tobacco. And this may be why you hear so many stories from people who used to have a drug addiction or used to overeat only to get hooked on frags later in life. There's a big uptick in perfume interest from GLP-1 users, which could just come from the confidence gained after a change in body composition or some psychological outlet for consumption in a way that doesn't depend on gastric emptiness. Children are getting into fragrances more than ever. The guy at Nordstrom told me all the preteen boys want cologne right now, and all the preteen girls want retinol. That is sad. I kind of went down a dark rabbit hole in regards to the cosmetic habits of little girls right now. Not good. Anyway, I'm talking about the popularity of the category because the popularity is, honestly, the sole reason why it's a bad time to start learning right now. The world of fragrance is entirely too big for its britches, not even due to its bigness. After all, it's still a niche interest, but rather the smallness of its britches. The industry isn't equipped to deal with the surge in interest. Frag Talk influencers like those of Book Talk and Skin Talk know how to capitalize on a niche and then set trends that move markets in an instant. Financial investors can think of this like a stock with low liquidity. A market maker whale can declare Amouage Outlands is the best thing ever, make it all sell out, and then prop up its clone on TikTok Shop. This guy says Penhaligon's Halfeti is the best niche fragrance of all time. And now you can get a dupe of it for a fraction of the price with the guy's name on it as his special edition version of the bottle. You know how a no-name $30 digital camera can become viral on TikTok and then suddenly command a $500 resale price? Imagine that, but for perfumes, which is even less popular than photography. Consider how right now young men demand something that they can apply before school and have it last all day. Where a working adult can keep a travel atomizer at their desk, kids want what is now regrettably called beast mode performance. And the market has to respond loudly and quickly. Some brands might push out bold ambroxan-scented bombs that fill up a room and then stick to skin for 8 hours. Some brands might make performance part of their branding. Look at how Commodity brings their scents to market with 3 different projection options: personal, bold, and expressive. These brands adapt quickly. Consider how buyers decided that fragrances from niche houses are more desirable than those from designer houses. And so the average price goes up such that a hot eau de parfum isn't $200, but rather $400. And then the niche houses say, beast mode is in. Let's release an X-Straight line with a longer performance and then charge $600 for a bottle. One of the most disappointing developments in the space is that nobody offers free samples anymore. You used to be able to go to a department store and walk out with a handful of 1 milliliter mini sprayers, or at the very least, buy a discovery kit for $100 with a bunch of small samples inside that are then redeemable for a full-size bottle of one of the samples. Nowadays, a milliliter of juice can run you $7. So if you try 10, you're halfway towards the cost of a nice, full bottle with nothing to show for it afterwards. That's why I keep on coming back to the Scottsdale Fashion Square with their high-end brands all on display to smell for free. The price that I would pay to try all those Penhaligons, Raja, and Creed would be in the hundreds of dollars by now if I had to pay for each one. In the same way that knowing somebody who's a great cook is a valuable way to try high-end ingredients for free, knowing somebody with a lot of fragrances, be it a sales clerk at Dillard's or a friend with a big personal collection, is a valuable way to broaden your understanding without much financial investment. I am forever indebted to Jason from my Discord server, who sent me a couple dozen of his own sample decants when I first started this journey. To be able to say, oh, okay, I see what DS and Durga is doing, or it turns out that florals really are a beautiful thing, that early in the discovery phase was mega bigly valuable. Speaking of mega bigly valuable, I feel like you've been paying attention long enough to be rewarded with a long, rapid-fire list of lessons that I learned over several months so that anyone who is interested in learning about expensive smells can skip past 100 hours of social media videos and expensive mistakes. 1, it is understandably lame to use the word fragrance every time, but the layman's notion that cologne is the boy one and perfume is the girl one is just wrong, so fragrance is always the best default. 2, know that your perception is easily influenced. You can learn to love or detest an aroma just because someone convinced you to. Memories and associations play a major role, and it's important to remember that you're human, not a spectrometer. Dior Homme Intense smelled to me like something from another planet I'd never be able to access until someone pointed out it smells exactly like a makeup bag. Iris is the main accord, and lipstick manufacturers use Iris for their products. Now, Dior Homme Intense is nothing but lipstick to me. 3, there is truly nothing more subjective than scent. And yet, you get guys on social media arguing all day about whether or not sandalwood smells like pickles. We need Cilantro's PR agent to do whatever magic they did with that whole I have the soap gene revelation. 4, there's a difference between liking the smell of something and wanting to smell like that. Garlic and onions cooking in butter smells fantastic. I don't want to smell like that. This Bond number 9 Wall Street smells like the ocean. It's so realistic. Too realistic. The thick smell of wet seaweed is kind of off-putting. 5, I don't remember what number we're on. I'll do it in post. There's a website called Fragrantica that's long been the best resource for information about each fragrance, but the UI and user-based quality have fallen off a cliff. The superior website by far is Parfumo.com. 6, don't buy anything from Facebook Marketplace nor eBay for at least the first year of getting to know these products. The percentage of fake bottles in convincing boxes is very high. 7, admit early on that this type of product is nothing but a hedonic luxury. It's not like clothing or food where you can say, hey, I got to wear clothes and I got to eat, so I might as well have the best. I think it's a fun learning experience and each new smell is a fun affair, but let's be honest about the fact that it is totally unnecessary. You could live your whole life never buying a fragrance and be totally fine. Whatever number we're on. People understand that every industry has its normie perceived luxury and its real, actual luxury, like how perceived luxury Louis Vuitton bags are plastic-coated canvas versus an actual luxury brand that sells small batch artisanal leather goods. And that goes for fragrances. Creed may be the well-known high-end brand with the prestigious yet questionable backstory, but then you have guys like Andy Tower who make each bottle in their own little studio by hand. When I said never, not ever should you pay retail price, I was ignoring brands like that, which won't likely be on discounter websites because they don't sell to big department stores. People who like collecting objects cover your ears. Buying stuff isn't a hobby. Try not to get addicted to buying new bottles such that your collection couldn't be consumed within 3 years. The hobby of learning can turn into the habit of buying without noticing. You wouldn't say how many bites should a meal consist of, and yet most beginners want to ask how many sprays is the right number, in the same way that people who worry about whether or not they're ready to have a baby are likely far better equipped to have a baby than the average baby haver. The people who are worried about putting too much fragrance on are likely under-applying. A weak eau de toilette on a cold day might get 1 spray behind each ear, 1 inside each elbow, 1 on the back of each wrist, and 1 down the shirt for good measure. That's 7 sprays, something that I would never do with an oud-centric extrait on a summer afternoon. Every atomizer spits out a different amount of juice in a different spray pattern, and each juice has a different level of projection. There is no number. I will just clarify that this practice of applying 1 spray to 1 wrist and then smushing it onto the other is almost certainly not enough. I do not think clones and dupes are ever capable of providing accurate substitutions for noses that know the originals. I do think that they're good enough for people who don't care that much. Don't these celebrities look the same? Whoa, kind of crazy. They're like 90% the same guy. And yet, when somebody says you have a doppelganger or you look just like your sibling, it's always like, yeah, okay, I guess I kind of see that. You are familiar with the faces of yourself and your loved ones. I bet if your mom had a twin, you would be able to tell them apart by tiny, almost imperceptible details. I wish this was an I wish this was an acceptable dupe for Louis Vuitton Afternoon Swim. People act like it's 90% the same. It's not. It smells like oranges, and that's where the similarity ends. Instead of acting as if dupes are the key to affordable fragrances, embrace the ones that are cheap because they are older or not as well marketed. Roja's Mustache Eau de Parfum is close enough to YSL Tuxedo for $30. Davidoff Zeno will scratch the itch to buy Tom Ford's Beau de Jour for just $20. Possibly my greatest discovery during this phase is that Mrs. Meyer's Clean Day Fall Leaves scent, which comes in hand soap, dish soap, and cleaning spray, feels strongly tied to Diptyque's Philosykos DNA. I love how my kitchen smells after cleaning, and this was $5. Buyers in the community love to insist that their faves have been reformulated. Reformulations do happen, especially because certain ingredients become banned over time, but I would suggest that you just ignore all that kind of chatter for as long as you can. Another thing I would advise you to pay no mind to is the idea of maceration, which is a real thing under the right context, but it's become a word so trendy that it's lost its true meaning. Just ignore it. Resist the notion that you must wear an unpopular fragrance to avoid smelling like anyone else. Most people wear nothing. There's always one fragrance that goes on to define a generation and will become noticeably repetitive. Your Drakkar Noir, your Acqua di Gio, your Dior Sauvage. But anything you haven't seen in magazine ads for 5 years straight isn't going to be at risk. If you must listen to fragrance influencers and critics and promoters, understand that they all have a perspective coloring their voice. Advice and criticism are both always autobiographical. Of course, Jeremy Fragrance loves Creed Aventus. He's Mr. Gold Rolex Red Ferrari. He isn't concerned about best for the money or underrated versus overrated. He is a winner, and he only buys winning stuff from winning brands. It's the job of the media consumer to connect certain dots, like, whoa, this guy has 1,000 bottles in the background of his videos. I wonder if he's oversaturated, far beyond the point of being able to relate to my needs. If you were curious about my own personal points of view, here are a couple of options that I hold at this time. My favorite top note is Mandarin, favorite heart note is Iris, favorite base note is Tonka Bean, favorite nose is Quentin Biche. I don't really like the faceless, colorless, genderless brands like Le Labo or Byredo. There's a certain post-human sterility to them that reminds me of Soylent and Huel. I think if you wanted to explore different options to buy, I would go to a department store and get their discovery kit full of different popular designer brands. But if you would rather learn different notes and accords one by one or two by two, I would get the discovery set from Essential Parfums right on their website. It's an affordable and simple starting line. Even though I don't love their scents enough to buy their stuff, I really like the value proposition of Mancera. They've got nice atomizers, the caps are magnetic, the bottles aren't obnoxious, the prices are fair, and they come with a little cover to keep the light out. If I had to pick just one fragrance house forever, it would probably be Frederic Malle, since they have the money and the clout to put out whatever they want without being limited by budget or quality or marketability. Since I don't have to limit myself to one house, I will say that I love Amouage the most for the fact that they do freaky, dark, spicy, smoky, Middle Eastern stuff that comes off as regal without relying on posh French or English style perfumery. I think Parfums de Marly rides that line between why is this so expensive and yes, it do be smelling quite good. So I would put them at the bottom of my list of top houses. In the A- tier, I would put folks like Bond Number 9. I'm sure that their stuff is great, but with a million billion product offerings, some of them are bound to be. And I do like the stuff from Maison Francis Kurkdjian, especially when you look at them as the logical conclusion to one's journey. Their work isn't challenging, it's just approachable. It's sort of like drinking a Montucky cold snack. It says, you've tasted enough to be done with high-effort IPAs, but you do want to spend the extra money to insist that, hey, pal, I know I would happily drink a Bud Light, but I don't know if I want to hold one in my hand with all these people around. I don't know if I want to spend too much time talking about my own personal preferences in this video as opposed to just in the comments, unless, of course, Amouage wants to send me a bunch of free bottles in exchange for me talking about how great their brand is. At the end of all this, I just want to call out how many of my lessons and points of view are totally analogous to food. Smells, like flavors, come down to a matter of taste. There is no best cuisine and there is no best perfume, but there's lots of media dedicated to finding the best because, honestly, millions of people just want their tastes decided for them. Celebrities and influencers pop up as replacements for self-expression and investigation. Think of how someone in your life might call you Gordon Ramsay Jr. if you cooked something fancy. Gordon Ramsay, to many people, is the de facto arbiter of what is good food. Also, similar to food, certain scent combos become commonplace. You see lamb and mint on a menu and you think, of course, those two go together. Just like someone might look at the notes on the back of a bottle and say, okay, so this is another rose oud combo. Classic. I think it's kind of funny that the culinary world gives different names for the same thing, like how jalapenos get smoked and then turn into chipotles, or bell peppers get dried up and ground into paprika. In the smell world, iris flowers are iris, but the roots are orris. You might get two different names for the same ingredient if, say, one gets its aroma extracted via steam distillation. It kind of reminds me of like poached eggs versus coddled eggs. Another comparison to food is how some people see an opportunity for artistry where others just see utility. You observe that whenever you hear from guys who demand beast mode performance, and you observe it when people leave their sour grape types comments on videos of haute cuisine like, no thanks, that would not even fill me up. Some people want a dozen fragrance choices every morning, while some people just want one signature scent. Remind you of anyone in your life who decided Cava is the place to get lunch every single day? And you know what? The fact that I felt compelled to make this video, the fact that when a friend comes over, I share a couple samples, suggests that just like food, this is something that you end up wanting to share with people that you care about. I hope you were able to enjoy.